So this next one up, this person is saying that there seemed to be a trend in IoT vibration of more data being available more frequently, but the overall quality and content of data becoming less. For example, loss of high frequency data. Do you have any thoughts on this, Jason, on the quantity versus quality debate for vibration IoT inputs?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's a really good question. And this is where it comes down to a bit of a case of people making purchasing decisions without understanding the limitations. The limitations of how equipment is, how sensors are mounted, the frequency response of it because of the sample rate, whether the full time waveform and the whole dynamic range of the spectrum is available to the artificial intelligence system, or whether the sensor on the machine is extracting data and handing that up. So let me explain a little bit. The sensor in your cell phone and your airbags and so on, they're very inexpensive, but they don't sample at a high rate. So if you're involved with vibration analysis at all, you know that with peak view and SPM HD and enveloping and so on, we like to sample at a very high rate so we can see bearing faults coming. We want to mount the sensor in a certain way, and as professional vibration analysts, we want access to the whole time waveform, sampled at a nice high rate with the spectrum, you know, with perhaps a couple of different frequency ranges maybe. We would like to have all that detail. But once you start, so firstly, the less expensive sensors can't give you that high frequency information. And because of the limitations of communication speed, you know, bandwidth, data storage, processing time, and so on, the systems may not take all that data from the sensor and transmit it into the system that make the decision. Instead, the sensor itself might become a smart sensor. The sensor itself, or they call it edge computing and so on, but the system right around the sensor might take that data, look at it, and make a decision itself where there's anything very important to share, and then either upload more detailed data or just extract certain information. I mean, in the simplest case, just an overall level, but there are other parameters that companies are extracting and passing that up to the decision-making system. So this is where, on the one hand, if a company didn't have any sort of system right now, they didn't want to employ vibration analysts and go down that sort of route, then an affordable system with limited sensors and these capabilities that I'm talking about is going to be affordable and will give them a warning of pending trouble, even if it's not a long range warning. You know, even if the sensor can't sample quickly enough, as the bearing is failing, you will see it at a certain time. Not as early as you might like, but you will see it. So to make it affordable and therefore accessible for all companies, you can make those compromises. But the question then comes, do people understand what those compromises are? And that's the challenge. So when you come from the vibration world, you understand how to do it properly, where you would like sensors mounted, you know, the fault conditions you could diagnose if you had, you know, vertical, horizontal, and axial, for example. You know, that all helps. And by the way, you will see that some systems can utilize triaxial. You know, they measure in 3 axes sensors, but others do not. So it's helpful, you know, when you've been properly trained and you can make informed decisions and say, I will pay a little more because I'll get much better results. But it's a great question, and it's one of those areas where people will unfortunately spend money and find out later that they're not going to get what they thought they paid for.